Why Tibet is back on the world stage. Last week, a Tibetan independent activist man named Lobga Rangzen set himself on fire outside United Nations headquarters in New York. He died from his burns on that day. He wasn't the first Tibetan to do this. More than 160 Tibetans have self-immolated since 2009, but he was the first to do it on American soil. And it happened just one day after Beijing's new Ethnic Unity and Progress Law came into force, a law many see as the latest step in erasing Tibetan identity. A law many see as the latest step in erasing Tibetan identity. In response, the U.S. State Department said it will keep calling on the PRC to return to dialogue with the Dalai Lama. Here's what's interesting. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spent years in Congress backing bills like the Tibet Policy and Support Act, legislation that explicitly called for talks between Beijing and the Dalai Lama's representatives. But since becoming Secretary of State in January 2025, his public statements have shifted. He talks about the PRC restricting foreign access to Tibet. He talks about supporting Tibetan culture and human rights. He does not directly call for negotiations between Dharamshala and Beijing. Why the change? I'd argue Washington already knows dialogue won't produce results. Beijing doesn't honor agreements, not even ones made with the U.S. itself. And Beijing benefits from that pattern. It lets the PRC project an image, at home and abroad, of a world run by two superpowers who negotiate as equals. While Chinese nationalism, especially online, keeps burning hot. So does Beijing actually take Dharamshala seriously? No, and Washington knows that too. But here's the thing. This isn't wasted motion. Reviving the call for dialogue does three things. First, it drags the Tibet issue back into the spotlight after a quiet decade. Second, it reminds the Chinese public that this issue never actually closed. And there's a third layer, one that goes deeper than diplomacy. Tibet is a story about the victims of communist rule. A history this U.S. administration has been unusually willing to name directly. What's unfolding now isn't just about human rights or cultural survival. It's about regional geopolitics. It's about water security across Asia, since Tibet's plateau feeds the rivers a third of humanity depends on. And underneath all of it is a reckoning that still hasn't happened, for what was done to Tibet. I'll be picking this thread up again next week. If this gave you something to think about, hit like, drop a comment with your take, and share it with someone who needs to see it. That's what keeps this conversation alive. See you next time.